Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Southampton Business School Placement Podcast. So each week we're going to be talking about our students' experiences, getting the employer perspective on what is a great placement student, as well as making sure that you are the most competitive applicant that you can possibly be when you enter that placement job market. So if there's anything else that you want us to discuss or anything that we're not covering in these placement podcasts, just drop us an email at placements.sbs@sotton.ac.uk. Now this week, we're lucky enough to be joined by one of our students who has just finished his placement, and I'm going to hand over to him to introduce himself and tell you what he's been doing for the last year.
So my name's Jake. I'm just about to begin my final year for the BSc marketing degree. So I've just been on placement at HPInc. It was great fun. Was there for 13 months, part of the COVID cohort, and I was involved in channel marketing, which is again quite different to what a lot of the stuff that we do in the classroom is, which is probably more business to consumer. But it was really good fun. A lot of B2B things, events, albeit virtual for the last year. But yeah. I was at HPInc, absolutely loved it, and looking forward to talking more about it.
Okay, that's really cool. So one question I had when I started working was, what is the difference between HPInc, where you were, and HPE, where we have other students based on their placements?
Yeah, so HPE, that's more around sort of the services and networking equipment that comes in the IT industry, whereas HPInc, where I was, is more around the laptops, printers, and desktop PCs that HP offer. So yeah, HP Enterprise is sort of networking. HPInc is more of the sort of the hardware that you and I would use on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, cool. Thanks for tidying that up for me, because it was definitely a question that I had when I started looking at placements at the two kind of organizations. What was the main difference? So that's great. So how long did it take you to secure your placement with HPInc, and what was that process kind of like for you in your second year?
The process, I think, is sort of what you sort of make it yourself. I'd say I started like most people did around September, October time, and I picked out a select few that I was interested in. And I think you just kind of get into the stride of applying to one or two a week. You know, you probably don't hear back from a lot of them for a good number of months.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get some which are the complete opposite, and you hear back within a week. You've had a video interview within a week, and then you know that you've got a verdict within another. So HP was one that I applied to back in September. Really straightforward. CV and cover letter went over to HR, and I didn't hear anything back until the new year. I know that that's something that I struggled with in second year. I think everyone wants to apply and know back straight away, and I think the reality is that it's often not the case. And I know out of my group of friends, I think only one of us actually even heard back from any placement sort of like applications before the Christmas holidays. And then I think that's where it all picks up. I think in the new year, I think it was 4, maybe 5 assessment centres at other companies. Was unfortunately unsuccessful in all of those. And then somewhere out of the blue, HP rang me up and said, "Look, Jake, we've seen your application, we've seen your cover letter. We'd love to have a chat on the phone." And I think once you get to that stage, I probably suggest it does get a little bit quicker. The process at HP, and I know it's the same this year, because one sort of benefit, I suppose, of being on placement at HP, you get to be involved in the process for your replacement. So I know that the process was saying this year, you do your telephone interview, and then they get you straight into the offices, or the virtual offices as it was for the guys this year, to do a short presentation / chat to meet the team. There wasn't actually an assessment centre for HP itself, which was actually the anomaly out of all the others that I was in for.
Yeah. And so with all of those assessment centres and applications you did, like you're saying, it's a bit like buses, they all come along at the same time. So how did you kind of prepare for that, or manage that rejection, that time? Because obviously you're still studying as well. So how did you find that?
Absolutely. And I think it's one of those things. I think you'd be lying if you said that something doesn't have to give. And I think you're trying to balance, in my case, I was trying to balance sort of social lives, like doing sports and societies that I was in. Like I said, doing placement stuff, doing your degree stuff. There is sort of a way of trying to manage all of that. And I think that the key sort of insight I'd give a lot of the guys applying for placements this year is I really would make an effort to prioritize your placements. And I know that sounds biased from me having done one, but I think it's worth that investment. And you know what, if you might not be able to go on 1 or 2 social gatherings with friends, and if if your semester average for your grades maybe drops 1 or 2 marks, I think the benefit of getting that placement and putting the effort in to really try your best to secure one is worth it. Obviously, it's different for different people. Certain people might have more or less time than I did, but that's what I'd say that the sort of the process and managing that was like. I think it's trying to not be as picky as you might be. I think it's always worth exploring, and I know you guys are really sort of big in the placements team, like championing smaller companies, because I've had 1 or 2 friends that have gone away there and had really successful experiences, and I've spoken to them, and some of the debts and some of the responsibilities that they've got involved in you might not get in a corporate company. So I'd say just be open-minded, put the work in, and what will be will be. Yeah,
that's good. So you spoke a little bit about my team, the placements team there. What would you say, how did having the placements team there help you during either kind of securing that placement or whilst you've been out on placement?
Yeah, so I say the main thing that your team do, obviously, we had the placements dashboard, I think. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, so we have like the jobs board.
Yeah, that was it. And that's absolute gold dust, because I think once you go onto that site, you know that everything there's been proofed by you guys. You can easily go on Rate My Placement and go on online and LinkedIn platforms to find openings. But I think you're always susceptible to get caught up in various sort of like T's and C's and whether you sort of like qualify for it. It's a really good way of having an official route straight to the HR team at whatever company to register interest in working there for a year. So I think that's initially the thing that was most helpful. I think looking back, the placements team, also you do your semester 1 module in both first and second year, I believe. It was like realizing success and
business placement.
In year 2. So both of them really prepare you as well. And I think a lot of those is not necessarily, listening in and memorizing it all, but it's actually just starting to think in the right way ahead of going on placement. And I think that's seriously valuable itself as well. And I suppose further afield as well, without just being the placements team, the uni as a whole is really supportive, and go down and get the CV advice that you can get down at the student services building really helps. I think having a really solid CV. I know that at HP, the year that I was recruiting for my replacement, there were 380 applications for my one role.
Wow.
So having as good a CV as you can is obviously what's going to separate you from the other 377. So
yeah, absolutely. And once you've got that CV help, do send it through to your placement advisor, because I will check it for you and give you some pointers, feedback on those individual applications, which we love to see. That's good. So I think a lot of people and a lot of students, definitely, when we talk about placements or internships or getting that kind of first job, they have some expectations on what they'll be doing, maybe good or bad, or maybe we've all seen those, Hollywood movies with the interns. But what were your expectations going into this HPInc role, and how did they compare to the reality, reflecting on the whole year of what you've done with them?
I think straight off the bat, the thing that I expected was to be in offices working for HP in Reading. Didn't happen, because this thing called COVID came up. So I had a year working remotely, which in hindsight could be something, and maybe not could, almost will certainly be something that's going to be really, really beneficial for me. I've spoken to a lot of people in the industry, and they've all said that your career is going to be a long time. You're going to have plenty of time to go into an office and sit at a desk and see everyone. But the fact that I'm sure there's a potential that some of the placements that the guys are applying for in the coming months, things may or may not change, might have a virtual element to them, be that enforced with the laws at the time, or be that because companies have just adapted. I know that HPInc, to be sure that it's HPInc, they're saying more of a policy now that the office is a place to collaborate, not a place to work. And I think what you'll expect from that is to only go in 1-2 days a week if you want. obviously that's going to change business to business. But in terms of the expectations for my placement, in a really basic way, I'd say where I was working was something that turned out really differently. But I suppose a more sort of like actual answer for the sort of the work and the sort of responsibilities.
Yeah.
Like you said, you could watch 1,000,001 different movies and TV shows where the intern is the one that makes the coffee, and I'm sure somewhere up and down the country that is the case, but I can be pretty certain in speaking that all of my friends that I've spoken to at the Southampton Business School that have gone on placement, not one of them's had an experience like that. And I think it's such a good sort of way to anticipate building like professional relationships. You know, you talk differently to your friends that you're going to your manager on your team. You talk differently to your manager on your team than you would with, you know, your colleagues on your team. And I think that's an area of practice that a placement can be really useful. And that was one of the things that I didn't expect to get out of a placement that I think I ended up getting. I definitely would say I developed more of those like soft skills rather than sitting there thinking, oh, I now, you know, understand all these theoretical principles, which are probably more learnt in the classroom, to the workplace rather than vice versa.
Yeah. And so your role as well, we were talking, was in channel marketing. So did you know anything about channel marketing when you went in? What was your expectation of what that kind of role was going to be, and how did that match up to what you were actually doing?
If I'm honest with you, I was really apprehensive. So when I applied to HP, I applied for a marketing guru position. And what I now know from being on the inside of HP, that is effectively you apply for a marketing role at HP. This year there was 4 marketing intern roles at HP. There's print PC, the channel marketing, and then also like a marketing infrastructure, which I don't really understand, but
wasn't something you went in with.
Yeah, and then what HP do is they look at you and they look at what the role is and they match you up. And I'd say that that's a really useful tip for something that I'm going to take into looking for grad jobs, is to the best of your ability, try and choose your manager or your business potentially over and above what the actual role is, because I think if the manager or business is right, even if the role's not, they'll help you to get experience in that role, or, you know, point you in the right direction for that. Because like I said, I was initially really nervous about doing channel marketing and business to business stuff, because it's not something that I'd ever imagined doing. It's nothing that we'd really done all that much in the classroom. And I know that you've had a background in doing events and you know how fun it is yourself. So I think it's really exciting, and it's not to say that I didn't get any of the sort of the business to consumer sort of education out of my placement, because I think it's what you make of it. And I was proactive and I reached out to one of the managers in the end user marketing team, and I said, look, can I shadow you? Can I help work on a project? And in that sense, I guess I can sort of come away having known that I've worked in both the end user and sort of channel marketing space, so that when grad roles will start to be applied to in the coming weeks and months, I've got a better view for what I prefer to do.
So is that something that you think was kind of unexpected? Like you maybe thought, okay, I'm going in to do this role and that's it, but you were actually able to kind of reach out to other departments when you saw something that interested you. And so what was the kind of work that you did with them?
Yeah, so in the channel marketing, the sort of the background on that is working a lot with, so HP products can be bought in, as everyone will know, Amazon. They can be bought on, you know, like Curry's, PC World, John Lewis, wherever. And what channel marketing is I effectively then work with John Lewis, Amazon, and PC World to work together with HP to basically sell more laptops, which mutually benefits both of us. The way we do that is a load of like fun virtual events, and you know, it's all about like strengthening the relationship between, for example, John Lewis and HP to be mutually beneficial. The work doing in the end user stuff, on the contrary, was more of a working on things like landing pages, making sure that they're, you know, as clean cut and efficient to sort of try and incentivize a sale as best we can. And other work I was doing was around sort of like influencer campaigns, which are obviously growing ever more with the rise of social media in marketing budgets. And in that way, I could see a really distinct difference in what the different teams do. And I found work equally interesting, which has been really great for me, because it leaves me sort of really open-minded to opportunities that will come up, hopefully at least in the next sort of year or so.
Yeah. and a bit of experience to draw from in both areas, B2B, B2C, and that you can talk about in those applications or interviews where you get to that. And that's a brilliant thing to come out of, your placement year. So I guess to round up, what would you say the highlight of your placement year would be?
I'd say the highlight was a sort of a completely different thing to what I've mentioned so far. And a big benefit of being an intern, I've been told this by my manager, is like, it's the year that you can get away with whatever you want to get away with, not in terms of being, like maliceful or whatever, but in terms of you can, like rock the boat, you can challenge things, and you can always sort of have the line of, well, they see you as young figures in their business who are sort of innovative and have new ideas for changes. A lot of the managers will be, several years older than us and will be used to doing things a different way. But I know a lot of big companies do this thing called reverse mentoring, which is actually where the younger people mentor, all these seasoned business professionals. And part of that was at HP for the first few months. I found it quite hard to adapt to home working. Mm-hmm. And I think part of the sort of the idea of helping with that was just speaking out to people, do people find the same? How can we sort of help each other? And the whole thing really snowballed into what was eventually an event that I managed to sort of organise and sort of initiate at HP called the Happy Place Project, which was really good fun. And it was just around the idea of that we want everyone to unplug from their laptops for 2 hours, go out and do some exercise. And we'll try and, raise a bit of money to do so, because I think as a lot of people find with work is that they always say take time away, but because not everyone takes away the time at the same time, you still get work coming through, and you kind of think, well, I'll only nip out for 10 minutes because, otherwise I'm going to come back to a full inbox and it's going to eat into my weekend. And the beauty of what this was is that everyone was away for the same amount of time at the same time. And it was great. And everyone went out and had, fun exercising. We did a second follow-up event, which was for a litter pick, where we managed to send everyone T-shirts, and it was really, really great. And I think overall, sort of 500-600 people got involved, and we managed to raise nearly £20,000 across the two events, which is fantastic. And I think that really epitomizes the opportunity that you can seize if you want to as an intern at any company. I know that a couple of friends, or a friend of mine who went to Oracle for placements, for his placement, did something in a similar way, where he wanted to go in and do a big sort of initiative towards well-being as well. So I think it shows that it's out there, and your placement can be what you want it to be. Speak openly and honestly to your managers about what you want to do, what you want to learn. If you're finding something difficult, just talk and be open to people, because they do see you as people that they can help and that they can sort of mold around what they want you to become. And I think that's the great part of being an intern, is just making the most of it.
Yes. So rock the boat, ask the questions, talk to people.
Yeah.
So I always say to them, ask the question. The worst thing that can happen is the answer is no, but the answer could be yes, and you could earn £20,000 for a charity. So brilliant.
Exactly. And I think it's like rocking the boat sometimes might have a bad connotations with it, but some of these big companies love that. They get young people in for that reason, because they do things differently. And as much as I think everyone arrives for their first day on placement thinking, oh my God, I'm so lucky to have this opportunity. Be so honest in saying, I know that all of those managers there are thinking, oh my God, we're so lucky to get this person in to do this role for you, because they're going to help us so much. So it's kind of having, in that way, a sort of a subtle sort of confidence / arrogance that you're there for the right reason and you're going to do well there.
And I think going back to those numbers you were saying about, recruiting for your replacement, there was 380 applications. So if you're the one person that makes it into that role, you've definitely earned your right and your place to be in that team. So, if you see something and you think this could be done differently, or here's a more efficient way, or actually that's not going to sit right with the customer or with the rest of the team, then maybe ask about it, say something, and you've earned your place.
Yeah, exactly that. And it is exactly that. When you arrive on your first day, you don't owe them anything more than hard work and your insight and things, and they want that.
Yeah, to do your job basically, and give your input, which is great.
Exactly.
So I guess the final thing, and I would love to get from your perspective as a student that's just finished your placement, what would be your one kind of top tip for anyone thinking about doing a placement, applying for placement, anything like that?
I think it's probably quite a common answer you might get, but I think it's quality over quantity to the best of your ability. I think every cover letter that you send, just make it the best it can be, because and it's not just HP where the numbers are 380 to 1. That's going to be at Oracle, SAP. That's going to be at ESPN, Disney. List goes on. And if you've done a half-hearted cover letter that's taken half an hour instead of 45 minutes, you've wasted half an hour. You've not saved 15 minutes. So I'd say that's an avenue for that. And you know, when you get to video interviews, really prepare. You know, like have your notes stuck up on the wall behind you. So it doesn't look like you're reading them. It's always something that I used to do.
Yeah.
And you know what? Just go to your interviews if they're in person. Be a real person. Don't just be a robot, because these people also don't want to have someone sort of working for them for a year that's really nervous and almost like in awe of a big company and, you know, in a professional job. They want you to be, you know, likeable, chilled out, but do your job, do it well, and be helpful.
Yeah, and I think it's important, especially with that interview point. You know, you're saying, I want to work for you, but you know, this is a team you've got to join, so they need to get an idea of who you are as a person and how you're going to fit into their team. So being yourself is really important. You know, be the best version of yourself, but be yourself, because those are the people you're going to be working with for 12, 13 months, and it's important you fit within that team.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that I actually got once I started at HP. I sort of got feedback almost on my interview, and that they've got tens and hundreds probably people that can come in and quote, you know, like the business values and what their revenues were in the year of X, Y, Z, whatever. But the thing that stuck out for me was just that they all said that it was just like a sort of an interpersonal thing where they felt like we'd gel well. I think by the time you get to any video interview or assessment centre or in-person interview, you've got the qualifications behind you, you've got the grades and the sort of the core skills. It's just about that personal fit. So, you know, I went in and started talking for some odd reason about cooking and baking and how I liked doing that. And all year I've just been tested for, Jake, you know what, if we knew we were doing it virtual, we wouldn't have hired you, because we only got you for your house baking skills. So I think just try and go in and relate to people on a personal basis, because that's what people remember you and makes you sort of just
that memorable thing that they picked up about you was Jake bakes cakes. It all rhymes and works so well.
Yeah, and that kind of hurt actually in hindsight. I feel about all the prep that I'd done, and you know what.
Well, yeah.
So you know what, I'd bake them cakes if that got me a job. So whatever.
Yeah, definitely. So I think the top tip, just I like that, you know, if you spend 45 minutes, you haven't wasted the 15 minutes. You've not gained 50 minutes, you've wasted 30. That's a good way of looking at it, because it's what we say is it's a quality application. You know, it's going to get you a lot further than just sending the same one out to everyone. And that's definitely something that's great to take away. Well, thank you for sharing your experience at HPInc as the channel marketing executive. It's been great speaking to you and hearing a bit more from me, because I was your placement advisor as well. So I got to hear a bit more about your experience throughout the year, which is great. And hopefully we can be joined next time by another student with another experience and hear about their placement.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anyone's got any questions, you know, reach out. I don't know if you can put like my Southampton email in the description, whatever, but you can just shoot a question across to Chloe or
we can definitely see if we can put you in touch with any students that might have any questions about working at HPInc or the process or any kind of advice. And I just learned that you're going to be a peer leader next year, so you might actually run into Jake doing that job and be able to ask him about his experience there as well. So that's everything for this week. And like I said at the top of the podcast, if you do have anything that you'd like us to discuss or anyone you'd like us to talk to, drop us an email at placements.sbs@sutton.ac.uk.